Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan. Today's YouTube video comes to us from subscriber Storm Surge Alpha. Storm Surge is in the Tier 6 German destroyer. It's the straight map, it's domination mode, and it is a ranked battle here in Season 7 of Ranked. As the battle gets underway, Storm Surge is headed to the C cap point directly. And he's got a couple of friendly ships kind of slowly heading towards the B cap point, but they don't seem to be in any great rush to get there. Both teams in this battle have 4 destroyers. It's a little bit destroyer heavy if you ask me. And in fact, my personal opinion of Ranked is that Ranked really should limit the number of destroyers to a maximum of 2. Anything more than that, and you're just effectively asking for a destroyer versus battleship game. Partly because nobody wants to take cruisers in. In fact, I think that would be an excellent change to Ranked if they limited the number of destroyers on each team to 2, and the number of battleships on each team to 2 as well. That would mean that you would have to bring in not less than 3 cruisers in a game. First enemy ship gets detected pushing into the B cap point, and that's going to be a little bit of a problem because that means that the enemy has already reached out and they've already begun to challenge that location. And Storm Surge hasn't even managed to make it to the C cap point yet. More importantly, the enemy team is well on their way to capping A. In fact, they are way out in front with the A cap. So that's going to give the enemy team that points advantage. Sometimes in Ranked, especially if you have multiple caps like this, it's kind of worth putting on that speed boost and getting to that cap first. And if you can get there with a second friend, another destroyer to come in and provide that capping assist, because getting that points lead, getting that cap and getting that early points lead right off the bat can mean the difference between winning and losing a game at the end of the battle. If it comes down to just a few points, that team who captured that first base early, well, they're going to be a little bit more advanced with their points count. So now Storm Surge has got himself onto the back side of this island, and it's going to be kind of a good position for him because he's basically back on the side of the map the enemy team spawned. So there are going to be slower ships, but the enemy team is probably going to be expecting to have to fight a more frontal approach. And I kind of want to pull up some of the tactics here that can be used both effectively to attack and to defend in this kind of situation. Storm Surge's team does lose one of their destroyers, so the enemy team now holds a destroyer advantage. And of course, because of the loss of that ship, Storm Surge's team is down on points. It's going to give the enemy team even more of a points advantage. And it is going to limit their ability to respond to a situation. Now, the Gaede is not a bad destroyer to take into rank in my opinion because it has the ability to stealth torp. It doesn't have the best concealment, but it does have the ability to stealth torp, and it's got a pretty reasonable reload rate on its torpedoes. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. The torpedoes, of course, they don't do a lot of damage, and you only get 8 of them. But that's still, it's a doable destroyer. The big advantage that this destroyer has is that it's got that hydroacoustic, and that hydroacoustic is not actually a bad option. And it's not a bad option because when you end up in a battle with multiple destroyers, it's going to be a lot of smoke screens getting tossed out here. Now Storm Surge is kind of holding back behind these islands, and you saw there he's firing torpedoes through that channel into the B cap point. The enemy team seems to be particularly interested in concentrating in that location. So by constantly keeping your torpedoes going down that channel, and especially into smoke screens, which as we all know are torpedo magnets, you can effectively force them to continue to maneuver, and with any luck you can cause them to maneuver out of that location, forcing them to turn broadside on to friendly battleships or forcing them to turn and run away, giving your team an opportunity to push the advantage. Another tactic that you could be using at this point if you find yourself over here is to actually just go up all the way around and end up on the back side of these guys. The destroyers here so far have proven to be out front, and they're trying to engage enemy ships, but as you can see there on the minimap, the last known recorded position of an enemy destroyer who keeps popping up in and out of detectability is actually in the backfield behind those friendly ships. And that's going to force the enemy to come and react. So that's going to force Storm's team to turn around, point their guns the other way, react, or send somebody down there to engage that destroyer to prevent that threat. Again, Storm Surge is in the prime position to do that himself. He could get back up there, and he could force these battleships, force these destroyers to go in and come back and engage him on his terms in the backfield. Of course, you do have to remember that once you're back there, you are isolated, so you're going to have to play it very, very smart. Use those speed boost and smoke consumables to break contact, so much as trying to hide and trying to run away, while simultaneously continuing to harass and pepper the enemy team. Now, the enemy team is way up on points. They're well over 200 points in the lead here because they have 2 base caps. They are earning these points twice as fast as Storm's team. So they're going to continue to expand on that lead unless Storm Surge's team can pull it together and sink something. This is where communication and coordination becomes a critical component to the game. You have to flag a target, and everybody has to agree, battleship or otherwise, that you are going to engage with and sink that enemy. And that Fubuki has got himself spotted out in the open, and he has earned the opportunity to be Storm's team's first kill. But of course, the enemy team does manage to kill another destroyer. The destroyer in the backfield manages to finish him off. And so that's going to leave the enemy team still with a destroyer advantage. But again, here's a second destroyer that's popped up who's earned himself the attention of Storm's team. But somehow he manages to survive. I'm not entirely sure how he avoids getting killed there. A well-timed smokescreen has to be the culprit behind that. And yes, of course, you can see there, he disappears into that smoke. But Storm is keeping himself in this position between these two islands. This means that anybody who decides to push up, for instance this Arizona here, is going to be in a very bad situation. And speaking of a very bad situation, the enemy team is now up in the 700 points range, while Storm's team isn't even halfway to the 400 points range. So that means that the enemy team is much closer to winning than Storm's team is to the enemy. And they've managed to take out 3 of Storm's team's destroyers. It just leaves Storm Surge here by himself, but you notice he hasn't taken any damage, so he's in a position that if he gets spotted, he can afford to take hits, get those torpedoes away, and then run. But looking at the situation, his team's really been pushed back. The enemy team is really quite far forward. They finally do manage to take out another destroyer, so that's just going to leave 2 of them. And those 2 destroyers are going to be somewhat important here in defending the B cap point. So that is going to keep the enemy team from pushing into the 800 points range, but they're still so much closer to winning on points than Storm's team is to them in the points factor. And remember, they still hold the B cap point, so they're still gaining points twice as fast. Now, this is where Storm Surge is going to go ahead and take the initiative. He's got the health. There's a smoke screen up here. There's an Arizona sitting in that smoke screen. And there's that Arizona. So he pops his hydroacoustic and spots that Arizona, but that Arizona leaves that smoke screen and pops up there. So Storm immediately slams on the brakes. He has a torpedo tube knocked out, starts repairing it so he can get that torpedo tube away. There's the enemy galleon, and he is just going to sit there out in the open for a little bit, but he's being detected by that hydroacoustic. Now, Storm manages to land a torpedo hit on the Arizona and then on that galleon, taking out the galleon, and a second set of torpedoes finishes off the Arizona for a double strike. That is an incredible turn of events. And now that enemy Gaede is popped up into his hydroacoustic sonar range, and is wide open. So Storm Surge is going to finish him off, earning him nearly what should have been a triple strike. But hey, a double strike is a double strike. And because of that sudden and very fortuitous turn of events, as well as Storm Surge's willingness to go ahead and risk his ship that way by pushing up, taking the advantage when an enemy is hidden in a smoke screen, and using your consumables, knowing your ship, knowing the range on those consumables especially, he was able to get up there and wreck the enemy in that situation, taking out the 2 remaining destroyers, which is going to be good for the battleships left on his team. That means that they can go ahead and begin to push up with impunity. They don't have to worry about those destroyers anymore. They're not a threat. So they don't have to worry about enemy torpedoes coming at them. However, the enemy team still has to worry about torpedoes coming at them because, hey, guess what? Storm Surge is still alive, and look at that. He still has all of his health at this point. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to push up here. He's taking the B cap point. He's not going to give the enemy the pleasure of continuing to gain points at double the rate, and it puts him in prime position to go ahead and challenge the A cap point. So depending on what this Warspite here wants to do, he's either going to be able to sink this Warspite and cause the points difference to change again, or he's going to be able to go and step on the A cap point and prevent them from gaining points altogether. So that Warspite being very cautious here, he's slowly sneaking around the corner. He knows there's a destroyer up here because somebody's capping that he can't see. More importantly, he can see the other 2 ships on Storm's team. The problem is that Warspite does not realize just how close that destroyer got to him. So Storm Surge is got both his torpedoes away as he kind of pushes behind that, and that is the last ship left alive on the enemy team, and Storm Surge earns his high caliber and secures the kill, earning himself 4 kills in that battle, 75,000 damage done, 2 double strikes, or 2 devastating strikes, a double strike, and a high caliber in that game. 2 base captures solo on that as well. A very good last 4 minutes to a game. It didn't look good there at the beginning, but boy, was it ever such a turnaround. And this is why I tell destroyers, don't rush up and die. You're more useful at the end of the game, especially if you have most of your HP left. And of course, a result like that's going to earn Storm Surge top of the team for XP earn, but everybody earns a star anyway on his team. So good job there, Storm Surge. Thank you for submitting this replay. It was very entertaining to watch. Anyway, that's it for today's YouTube video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. You can also find my live streaming schedule pinned there. If you'd like to help support me and my channel, I encourage you to do so by visiting my Patreon and becoming a monthly contributor there. Small contributing levels, any actually, will grant you some early access to some of my World of Warships replays. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can do so by sending it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play World of Warships, among other games, live, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.